Shalom, everyone. Delighting deeply in this opportunity to join with you in deep contemplation, exploration, and the dance with the Holy Shekinah. I would ask you to be free and let go. Thoughts of the past, fantasies of the future, to be here now and let the Spirit take up your heart, your thoughts, your mind. That as we gather, there may be a free-flowing exchange, and that through this, the Holy Shekinah may dance with us, inviting and welcoming her presence. Simply because rejoicing in her mysteries and the truth of our inmost holy soul, truth of our being in Mashiach. So let us breathe deep, releasing the day, where we've come from, even where we're going. Stilling the mind, thoughts. And the stillness, the speaking silence. Listen and hear subtle sound vibration that pervades all living beings and souls, all of creation and beyond. Elohim, 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 Shaddai, Elohim, Yahweh, Elohim, Shaddai, Elohim, 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 Elohim, Shaddai, Ashira, Shekinah, Ashira, Shekinah, Ashira, Shekinah, Ashira, Shekinah, Ashira, Shekinah, we hold in our hearts and our minds an infinite expanse of spaciousness, a space focused, consecrated, blessed, and arising from the inmost purity of all that is. And we hold this space for all living souls and beings. May there be a place of peace, a place of sanctuary, and a place of stillness. May this go out as a great light of the cross through all worlds, universes of sentient existence. Amen and amen. So, while on the surface, these two sections we're coming into, which could appear to be fairly unrelated, they are so very integral, tied together strongly by a common theme. And of course, through each, we can get at various angles, but wanted to put that out there of, we want to look at whatever this wine of heaven is that Yohanan is blessing and sharing with this one who's coming to him. And whatever this encounter with these vultures is completely connected. And the first thing that comes to mind in the spirit is, we have to remember Yohanan is an extremely otherworldly character. Very otherworldly. Isn't quite here like most of us. And holds a continuum that is, well, let's just say pretty rare in the whole scope of things. Pretty rare. I mean, we have to just, just like with the Magdala, we always want to remind, we're talking about our the soul in us, and she is the soul of the world. And well, just like here with Yohanan, we always want to remind of the otherworldly nature of Yohanan. And quite literally, I mean, he's living on locusts and wild honey, clothed in camel skin. So not so much here at all. And that continuous turning to that particular perception of him is going to help us as we proceed in his stories, because it gives a ground of understanding his responses to things and where he's coming from. And when we say otherworldly, it teaches of this idea of 1 foot in this earth and 1 foot beyond. And not quite here as we might perceive here-ness. But then again, I think we all might flash in and out of what that here-ness is. So we also don't want to separate so far, because in a certain sense, well, we're all kind of otherworldly. Meaning, perhaps not so much of this world, but do we know it? Do we live in that way? That becomes and Yohanan surely shows that a radical way of living in a very otherworldly presence, obviously so. So this we want to remember as we dive into these mysteries tonight, because first, this idea of the wine of heaven, this wine that this one brings, bless him, this disciple, he kind of just wants to draw close to Yohanan. He doesn't know how, right? So he brings him this, you could imagine, probably pretty good wine offering. Like, hey, let's take this up together. Well, Yohanan has a message for him of, well, it is not for me to drink this with you, but, I I can't do this till all is accomplished. Literally, cannot drink of this wine of the earth. However, it goes on, and he goes on to speak of this message of blessing wine, that it might be of heaven. In fact, to the point where as he pours a cup to this one, and as he goes to do this, he offers this blessing to him of, you get a sense, what is not his to do physically, but yet what he is doing spiritually, drinking of the heavenly wine. He gives him this blessing, this cup. Here you go. You take this up. Not needing to take it up himself because he's already there. He has no need of earthly wine. And it even goes on to talk about how, well, in the blessing of the wedding feast, we will speak of this wine that gladdens the heart of the human one. Yes. Oh, no. No need for that. It goes beyond that into this infinite joy and bliss. Do you get a sense that there's a peculiar little point in Scripture, Gospel of John, where Yeshua encounters the Samaritan woman? It's really curious little moment where he sparks up this conversation with her, and in the meanwhile, his disciples are going into town seeking food and drink and such for Mashiach, for Yeshua, and themselves. And they come back having gathered this in, and they find him talking with this Samaritan woman. And that's kind of a big no-no. And they're like, oh no, what has gone wrong, kind of. And here the two of them are having this spectacular conversation. And they've brought back food and drink and everything. And he's like, they ask, well, Master, don't you want to eat, drink, He goes into his whole dialogue. I have food you don't know about. This is my sole mission. And food we could translate into drink. Similar movement here happening with Yohanan of, I've got some drink you don't know about. You might want to look deeper to what you're seeking. So there is this. Now, this transitions into another really poignant moment of Yohanan's otherworldliness with the vultures. Because like the disciple who thought, I'll bring some wine and we'll hang out and we'll party and, some truth will come out. Well, this other one goes out to meditate with him, and all of a sudden he's seen vultures circling in the air, thinking, oh no, I only see vultures when something's dying. Is my master dying? What has happened? Cannot be in what's happening. Goes down to chase them away. He can't. They don't even move. They jump and sit here, jump and sit there. Yohanan laughs. What are you doing? Don't you know that if your mind is still, if your thoughts are still and you can actually silence your mind, these won't be such an issue. They might move with you, but here they do not. Do you hear a parallel of a shift into the consciousness of the heavenly wine? You want to be with these beings as they are in God. And oh, is there a power in Vulture? Similar to our last week's discussion with the lions, but here, Vulture, the transformation power. He actually goes on to equate his work as the transformation power and transforming this sorrow and suffering, illness and death through all creatures into this greater expanse of the light continuum. Delivering beings and souls from sorrow and suffering. This is key. And so in both stories, he really shakes up this worldly view of things. Turns them inside out and upside down. And I think that's something Zadakim do here. In fact, not think, no, Zadakim come here to do this very thing. With that said, I'd like to open to discussion and hear how this touched you, what it spoke to you, and how your heart is hearing this truth.
When I first read about the wine and Yohanan speaks of the vine to come, or this wine of heaven to come when it's completed, it brought me to contemplate Yeshua at the wedding feast when he turned water into wine, and the purification as what Yohanan spoke of. Yeshua creates what he created in us. He does in this wine as his first miracle, as he's bringing transformation to the earth.
Thank you for bringing up that wild miracle and the first one, as you say. The wedding of Cana does this really curious thing where, for example, after reading this section, was wondering, what kind of wine is really being served there? Because in the story it is said, most of the time they serve the good wine first, and then save the not so good wine for later. Well, obviously so, when people aren't really paying attention, can move in there the not so good wine. But that particular miracle speaks this idea of, oh no, what has happened? The good wine is coming in later in the evening. This is very different. And so, wondering, this idea of the wine of heaven here, that in the wedding of Cana, that folks might be experiencing. And, might that have something to do, where here it talks about this infinite joy? If one relaxes into the space of Mashiach, there is a possibility of this infinite joy. And I wonder, as you're drawing out, brother, if that is what was being shown in that very first miracle. That in fact, coming into a message of eternal life that Yeshua will ultimately show through crucifixion, through what happens to the gospel. But that seed gets planted right there in a beautiful way. Indeed.
I was really feeling that connection to, am I interrupting somebody? Did I interrupt somebody? No? Okay, sorry. I was feeling that connection too, like when we take up our spiritual practice, even though it might look different than other people's practice, how we change, like the water and the wine, like how we turn into something different, not just this natural thing that comes out of the earth like water, but this more refined, like psychological process, how we change like from one cell or one thought process at a time. Anyhow, thank you.
That's very well said, brother. In fact, our teachings will dive into this in terms of the wedding feast, that the Eucharist. You're taking these two elements, bread and wine, both of which take a certain evolution to come into being. Bread does not happen overnight. I mean, it takes cultivation, harvesting wheat, moving into baking bread, and the whole movement. Wine, in a sense, even more so, because you have the fermentation whole cycle that wine has to go through. So your insight's beautiful, because that heavenly wine is what happens, in a sense, to souls as they are fermented and put into the crush, the wine press, crushed and well, we talk about the uplifting of the I thought into something greater that isn't so worried about this. Talk about going into the wine, the whole smashing of the grape until the essence is drawn out. Yes. And then has to be fermented and very carefully tended. Beautiful at that.
I too was reminded of this wedding feast, and where it brought me was that this miracle of Cana was the calling of the bride back to the Holy Land, and seeing this dance of the Shekinah that begins, this joy and this rejoicing. Got a little bit of insight on how the bride is called back by uplifting the spirit, by the spirit-filled worship that spontaneously breaks out after just a simple blessing of the wine. And then a little bit of, because you're talking about how otherworldly Yohanan is, and really the angelic nature of kind of his ministry. It's very it's very otherworldly. So just reminded that it was angels that called her back, and there's this seems to be this beautiful play within and behind everything that's happening with this.
Very much so, dear brother. How are our souls called? We want to reflect on that. And it's not a one-time calling either. It's a call that we continuously hear. In fact, it's what prevents us from defaulting into a normal life and living and going about our business in the world. It's a continuous call. And such that the Magdala is called holy Tzaddikim such as Yohanan are called to show a way that is resonant with this call in being, so that when you encounter a holy Tzaddik, you hear the call in yourself. And it is known. And there is no, depending on the gradation of the call, there's not really a turning away from it. Now, all right, one might walk the other way, not hearing, it's going to keep coming, and it's going to keep coming, and it's going to keep coming. But that is a good thing, because it's reminding of our otherworldliness. And it's reminding, like we like to say, that you are material being here having a spiritual experience. And what about the spiritual experience? And you might want to tend this because it could be the inmost, deepest call of your very being, that which makes up the very fabric of your being. And we can see how through various experiences, this call becomes not such a whisper, but speaking of that would not allow one to turn away from. Because it pervades every bit of your being. That is what we mean by otherworldliness. And we don't want to exclude ourselves from that. Because anybody sitting in this room tonight having this wild conversation about Yohanan, which is pretty wild actually, probably has a call to this otherworldliness. I would say so.
Just wanted to share a story. I'm feeling moved to share it. Experience I had about 2 hours earlier from now, but right before I was on my way home tonight, and I stopped at the stoplight, and there's a man in a chair, and he sees me, his eyes get all big, and he rolls back and gets to my car and tells me to roll down my window. So I do that, and when I go to hand him money, he swats at me. He goes, "That's not why I want to talk to you." He goes, "I had something to say to you." It is all about just giving 5 minutes a day to Christ, and every single day. And if you do that, you can walk. He goes, I can walk just a few steps, but that's all you need. That's all you need is just to walk a few steps. And it was so, there was so much exuberance and so much energy behind what he was saying. And and I just came out of it. There's just this blessing I could feel happening. So I blessed him, and I went, and it was a beautiful experience.
Oh, brother, that's quite lovely. I think a messenger of Yohanan might have been there speaking to you. No, literally, I don't need the wine of the earth. I don't need no money. Let's talk about what really matters. Praise God. Thank you for sharing that. A true sign and the one. A true revelation. Indeed.
Go ahead, Catherine.
Oh, no, honey. You go ahead.
Okay, if you insist. All right. I was caught up in the 5 vultures, and I'm thinking, why 5? Why not some other number? Well, the Hebrew letter for 5 is his hey, and it means window. And I saw that as a window of opportunity for the disciple to have a deeper insight as to what was happening here with the vultures. And the other thing that caught my attention was when Tao writes that Yohanan said that he and the vultures are kindred spirits. And that sort of brought me to Thomas 56. Whoever has come to know the world has discovered a carcass. And whoever has discovered a carcass of that person, the world is not worthy. In the former case, it seems to be talking about vultures because they're always looking for carcasses and they're out there. And in the second case, we're talking about the otherworldliness of Yohanan and how the vultures feed on the carcass. They feed on death in order to sustain their own lives, and it's the same with Yohanan. He looks for those who are living in death in order to bring them to life. So that's where my contemplation went.
Ooh, wee, brother. That is beautiful. I'm deeply enjoying something you just drew out. Are holy and righteous ones sustained by tending to delivering souls, liberating souls from sin and death? Is that their substance, their very being? I wonder. And given in this life what's been seen, witnessing holy, righteous Zadig, that's the drive. And it's really curious because vultures are all about transforming what is diseased, what is contagious, what can take over. They perform this wild work in creation to uplift and liberate and transform, literally shifting bacteria and that which kills into life. So Zadikim are doing this. How else would they be so fervent and passionate? And consider, what is feeding on locusts? Similar idea of that transformative quality and that which liberates, redeems. Zadikim, true Zadikim, are not relying on their own life power. In fact, their own life power has passed by completely. And so what gets sustained is through this great labor and work, messianic continuum. So that is quite lovely. And that's the call to all of us. Letting go of the things we think in life that sustain us into, what truly sustains life. The vultures are showing that. And also, I like your insight of the space of the 5 and the window of opportunity present. That's a beautiful insight. How do we come to notice these moments of opportunity?
That's fascinating, because the teaching that is given is that we can't chase away our thoughts, that we simply observe, bring them to awareness. And it seemed like awareness is the key, because thoughts will arise and pass by, but awareness is what transforms. So I'm hearing that in this contemplation of the window of opportunity, because to awaken in a moment is to embrace the opportunity within each moment.
Truly. And thank you for drawing out that curious little moment there of, oh, you come down here thinking you're going to chase these away when you couldn't even chase away the own thoughts in your mind. Really? Oh, how about being silent? And in silence, these might come into a accord with you. They might not be so distinct from you. And actually, that gives a really good key of what's happening in our thought patterns that are creating the illusion of separation as they can tend to arise. And this is why, through all world wisdom traditions, what is allotted is meditation, and deep meditation, and that ability to come into a certain silence of mind that does not chase this way and does not chase that way, actually begins to encompass all that is arising. And so he speaks that to him. And that reveals a poignant teaching that we want to be with and abide with.
Well, that's beautiful, considering, because vultures are one of my favorite animals to watch, wildlife to watch. And they have this way of spending a lot of time observing from above, because they're not hunting. They're just finding something that is already dead. And so they will circle for quite a while just to, observe the environment, before they come to land and transform their meal. And so I just see so much about how to embrace thoughts and thought patterns, first expanding the mind and then bracing what is there, and, as you say, not seeing it as separate, bringing it into oneself.
Dear sister, this is a beautiful mystery, because it gets into compassion itself and how compassion, true compassion, is enacted here, because vultures do symbolize that really profound movement in Mashiach as compassion. Because as you said, they're not killing, but they're liberating. And how does that compassion come to pass? But to be able to abide in a space that is observing from above simultaneous to experiencing below at the same time. And that really is kind of a transcendent view, but immanent. So it's not beyond to where it's not outside of what's happening, but it is so beyond, it's in what's happening. And there's a subtlety in that. Because sometimes we get ourselves caught in the illusion of what's happening without the influence of that view you spoke of. But when there is that influence of that view, which we all have, it's innate in our human experience, that vast view that observes, the silent witness. When that is included, what's arising below is included in above. I once had this opportunity to, one morning, driving down the road where I live, there was a deer person and a buck. They were clearly kind of a couple. One had died, and the other was standing by it. And there was a vulture sitting right next to it on the fence, and another one on the ground. And it was as though they were all having this communion. And it was as though the vulture person was respecting enough the deer in mourning to not, do what was intended right away. But they were all holding this vigil for this one that died together. So profound. And so that transformative quality has in it a boundless compassion. And that's what, in a mystery, brings the ability of transformation. Hearing that and what you're sharing.
I'm hearing too the transmutation with the vultures with the sun, because oftentimes they will salute the sun, and they spread their wings. I recall house sitting for some friends, and they had this dead tree outside, and in the morning I was sitting just abiding, and these vultures would come and they would just sit, and then they would spread their wings out, and they would turn towards the sun. And they would just sit there with their wings spread out, and they're being dried. Basically, I think they're drying their wings in the sunlight. But to me, it looked like they were saluting the sun. And hearing Kevin's insight and others' insight on this transmutation, and hearing the number 5, I was hearing the transmutation of the elements in consciousness as well. And when you were just speaking of this no difference, I'm hearing also with this wine of heaven, perhaps Yohanan's not necessarily denying this person this wine, but perhaps he's not seeing any difference between what he's taking in. as though all things are uplifting this desire energy to the Holy One. There is no difference between this cup of wine and this glass of water or whatever he's separating. I'm hearing this transmutation power of everything is this one desire, and there's no separation in this offering, because food and drink are basically things that the body needs. They're desires that the body needs. But when a purified desire, everything is uplifted and all desire is transmuted. So I'm hearing something very different with this uplifting of desire to the one, and seeing no difference in this offering that Yohanan's pretty much purified in consciousness and reflecting to us that true from the very beginning, there is just one desire and everything is transmuted and uplifted in that way. So I'm hearing this unique message that Yohanan's sharing with us.
Beautiful, brother. Lovely. Oh, and thank you for drawing out the movement that in the grace of the beloved, we might witness of the vultures purifying, literally turning towards the morning sun, knowing that the morning sun that is purifying everything. What about us? Taking up morning prayer in that way. Seriously, of opening, letting the light of the Son of Mashiach come into us and burn everything away, clean it all, just purify all of us. Well, I would say that's the power of morning prayer. Truly, and vulture people teach this to us. Now, your sharing of desire, energy itself, one desire. Brother, we look out into the world today. There is but one desire. It is just tainted in different ways, in a myriad of calls and ways of quenching it, and this and that, and all the while it's one desire. And so beautiful that you're sharing. Oh no, that is kind of what Yohanan's showing with this wine of heaven, with his communion with the vulture people. It is one desire. It just here gets manifest in so many different ways, and ways that tend to separate and take away. But if we can come to see that this desire has always been us and is the very force and power that lives us, that fuels our lives, it is Ratzon. In Kabbalah, we know Ratzon, corresponding with Keter, will, desire. It is innate in all of us. How it manifests, whether we're chasing vultures away from the communion with them, or we're thinking that we are separate from, in all of these different ways. Well, That's the expanse of desire energy. But it is one desire. And that's good to remember. Because if we can remember that and know that, well, then we can walk here with that transformative quality that seeks to always return beings to their one desire. However, that their desire is arising and can actually serve to grow that desire in us. Because you get that sense with Yohanan. What is the idea of uplifting the serpent? Uplifting desire. Meaning dedicating and coming to the truth of our desire energy that has always been, but we have to try different things to come to return, to know, oh, that's what I was really desiring. That's the ceremony of the vultures. Purify my desire. As I walk this morning, this day, clean me, that I might enter into the profound truth of what leads me in you, as you, Yahweh Elohim. Good to remember that. You know, there was one time baptizing a certain soul. Who is with us to this day? I'll never forget. We were in the river. We took up this baptism. And we stepped up out of the water and we looked, and sitting in the very center of the river on a big rock were 3 vultures facing east, doing their thing in purification. And woo! I was very moved by that image, still to this day. Because, well, baptism is this, and the very call of our soul is this. Perhaps a good place to pause, to abide in these revelations, to abide in the silence of our being. I pray you take and abide in the truth that sets free from the very beginning, the purity that lives and moves you moment to moment, hour to hour, day to day. May you walk and move in the fullness, the unity of God Most High El Elyon, emanating forth in the myriad of manifestations, all in one Yahweh Elohim. May you walk in this power, this truth, that it may shine through you to so many this night. In grace. My love to you. May you go in this sanctuary. Shalom.